there yarn lovers, it's Gary and I'm coming to you from my happy place, the Yarn Corner here on Vancouver Island in Canada. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is Saturday, March 11th, 2023 and this is video number 177. How are you all doing? I hope you're well and staying safe. As the title suggests, I will be doing a bit of a catch-up, show and tell on my FOs and my WIPs, that's my finished objects and works in progress. And I will be catching you up on updates in my community and adventures that I've been having. I'll put that towards the end of the video. All the yarny goodness will be up front. To returning viewers, I want to say welcome back. I've been reading and loving all of the comments. The last video that I put out on Hirschner's, they were the cotton stripe Millen cakes and they're on back order right now. I appreciated all of the comments about people who have purchased them as well and what they've made with them, made some suggestions on patterns that I could look at. So I really do appreciate that. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, my last video, I'll link it down below in the description box and you can click on it and take a look at the wonderful cakes that I got at a really ripper price. And the price has increased since I had purchased them in December of 2022. So be wary that the price does fluctuate from time to time. I believe right now at the recording of this video, they are $14.99 for a pair of 2 cakes. And that's US currency. But do check in and see what those prices are if you're interested in getting some of those cakes yourself. So yeah, I also want to let you know that this video will have some happy mail and a little bit of a talk as well on pockets, what to do with pockets. So I'll get to that in a little bit when we get to what Hank is wearing. But first of all, I want to kick this off by talking about what I'm wearing. And it is a finished object of mine and you can see it here. It's a crocheted beanie. I absolutely love this. It's really soft. The learn for me in this one was new stitches called the Star Stitch in crochet, and it is by my good friend Crystal over at Bag a Day, the pattern or the design, her tutorial. And I'll link it down below as well so you can go across if you're interested. It is called the Crocheted Sampler Beanie and I used a 5mm crochet hook and I use this yarn here. It's from Cascade Yarns. It's called Luminosa and it has this beautiful sheen to it. It's in the color Tiger Eye, or if you want the color number, it is 02, I believe. Yeah, that's what it says here. And I absolutely love this yarn. It's super duper soft and wonderful to work with. And the way it hits the light, you see a little bit of that reflection, like the sheen the chroma kind of metallic sheen to it. It only sort of like comes out when you're in the sunlight or if you have a nice strong source light hitting against it. Otherwise, if it's in a darker place, like maybe you're sitting in a sort of dimly lit room, it'll feature more of the brown, like overall brown with none of that sheen, which makes sense because there's a lack of light there, so you don't get that reflection that chrome does have as its nature. So I really do love this yarn, and I have another 2 of these hanks that I'm going to be putting into another project, which I'll talk about in a later video. So this is FO number 1, finished object. So the next one that I have is another hat, and I'll just reach over here and grab it. This hat is a free pattern as well that I found on Ravelry, and it's called the Julian Entanglement Beanie. That's it there. It's a 3-page pattern, no, 4 pages of pattern, but it gives a little bit of description of the designer as well as the wonderful things that you will need to make the pattern. And then the pattern itself is probably over 2 pages. And I had some scraps, as we all do, right? We always need to think of things to use for our leftover yarn, and healthy leftover scraps. I'm talking about 80 grams of a hank, or 50 grams. So this one is what I had made here using the pattern, and I put it on this model head because it is a little small for me, and I'm working on a second one to make it a little bit bigger so that I can wear it. But I did love the color combination here and the clever way that the two colors play. It is color work, so you're kind of like working two colors in each row at a time, and the decreases are very fast. So I think that's probably why it became a little bit short for me. I was expecting it to travel a little further and have a nicer dome shape, but it does have a very flat shape. The decrease rows are quite severe. So in my next one that I'm going to try out, I'm going to stretch out those decreases a little further and see how it looks. But I love this pattern, and the way that it teaches me to do the little crossover stitches. I believe they're called cables, even if they are just two crossing over. It's like a little cable transition. I really enjoyed learning that. And there are several ways that you can play around with the color arrangement of this pattern that gives it a different look completely. You can use the darker color on the base and then a lighter color to do the mesh work or the cabling, and that gives a completely different look to what you're seeing here. The yarn that I chose for this one is the Lion brand. Is it called Chic Sheep? It's CHIC Sheep, and it is in the colorway Mimosa. It is considered a 4-weight yarn. It's a little, I'm going to say a little thinner or finer as a 4-weight yarn, but it has this wonderful bounce and elasticity to it, which worked very nicely in this pattern. And I paired it with a little, a healthy scrap of Premier's mule wood, and it is in the colorway Laurel. And this is a nice kind of variegated green to more of emerald green, and then more of a sort of a tealy, no, like a gray seal green here. So that's how it works. I absolutely love it. Nice size for a small person. I'm going to say maybe a small adult. This hat would be ideal. And those are the two finished objects that I've got to share with you. But that's a great transition, talking about the hat that was designed by, let me just take a look here. Okay, this hat here is designed by Shweta Shankar Khatri. Shweta Shankar Khatri. I'm probably pronouncing that really poorly, so I do apologize. And here is what I was talking about, playing with color, because I started another one. I was like super impressed with this design. But here we go here. It's also got a little bit of a shimmer to it as well, in the right sort of light setting. But I am still choosing to use the light color here. But what I did is I switched up. I should have had these cabling in the darker color, but I wanted to run more of the lighter color from the brim all the way up to the crown. So the majority of the color will be this light brown color that I'm using, and then I'm featuring those cables with this darker tiger's eye color, the leftovers from this hat here. So I'm using the Cascade Luminosa, and I love the way it's working up. It's nice and floppy, and I'm using 4mm for the banding here in my Chagu stainless steel, and I believe it's a little longer than a 16-inch. It's probably around an 18-inch set of cable needles, and it is the stainless steel, and then moving up to a 5mm for the color work here in the body. So yeah, those are the floats if you're interested in taking a look and how they move around. See, the other way would have been nice as well, I think, with the darker on the banding as well as this meshing with the lighter behind. That would be a nice stained glassy kind of look as well. So a really lovely free pattern feature. So as I mentioned, these are the this is the scrap from this hat here, and it's the Tiger's Eye colorway in the Cascade Luminosa. And this one here doesn't have a color name, but I purchased it from Little Knits, and it was in a pack of 5 mystery. Yeah, it was 5 mini skeins, and they were each 50-gram mini skeins from this brand here called Aracunia. The collection is called Grace Wool, but it doesn't have a color name in the label. So those are the details there if you're interested in finding out. It has a lovely sheen to it. So I'm playing around with different, not just different tones, but also different qualities of the yarn. So this is shinier. Well, this is shiny too, but this is more fuzzy. So I really like those combined together. And yeah, I did this last night. So it was when we were watching movies, and it took me around, I'm going to say about 4 hours to get this far. I think what I'm going to do is work on this one and come back and show you how those decreases look when I make those alterations and get the dome a little bit more elongated. Next up, I'm going to be talking about what Hank is wearing. Hank's my man form here, and he's wearing the Bergen Cardigan. It's a knit pattern designed by Martin Storey, and I had worked up the sleeves in tandem. You saw this in the last update without sleeves. So the sleeves are finished and I've sewn them on. It's been a great learn and continues to be a great learn, because the next step that I'm going to be doing is adding the collar and the pockets. So I went down the rabbit hole of how to add these pockets on as an afterthought. Now the pattern does ask for pockets to be held on either a waste yarn or a separate needle as you're knitting up the garment, but because I had to make so many alterations for sizing on the number of stitches, I wasn't sure where I wanted those pockets to be situated, where the opening will be, and I wanted to have a nice kind of length for the front of the pocket so that your arm's not bent too far up and could actually bend a little bit more comfortably to use the pocket. So I thought to myself, I'll figure that out later. I'm sure that there is ways of doing a pocket from a panel that is straight stockinette. And I did find many, many ways of adding pockets. So as I mentioned in the title, this will be a little exploration on 3 types of pockets that I discovered. And I think I've chosen one of them. Now, there are multitudes of different ways to attack this little experiment, and I'm sure that there's combinations of all of the 3 that I am going to mention, and furthermore to my exploration that I am not going to touch on, but that's going to be well and truly too much to talk about. So I'm just going to pick 3. I've also linked some of the handy tips and tutorials down below of the people that I was exploring that I thought highlighted some of the features quite clearly for me. And if you're interested in learning how to do a pocket after the fact, then this kind of information might be of value to you. So the first one that I discovered was the patch pocket, or the pocket sew on. So you knit the panel of the pocket as you want, like with the sizing and all that sort of thing, and you just sort of put it on top to the external part of your garment, and you sew along the bottom and the sides. So I've included a video clip here of a podcaster called, I'm going to mispronounce this, I'm so sorry, Kadri DIY Tips. And the tutorial is called Sewing on Pockets in Knitting, and that talks about the patch pocket. The second style of pocket is picking up stitches on the exterior of the panel and knitting as you go, and sort of catching the loop legs of each side of the pocket to stitch it as or knit it into as you are working up the sides. And I think this might be the way that I'm going to tackle it. Now, there's a great tutorial that I was watching, and it's by the podcaster The Fat Squirrel Speaks. And the episode is called Bonus Episode Applied Pocket Tutorial. So that is the pick up stitches and knit variety of pocket. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. And the last one is probably the most tedious, and I'm going to say most equipment based needed and fiddliest. And it is called the afterthought pocket. And that's where you would potentially use 2 lifelines like you're doing an afterthought heel and a sock. You feed them through a top and bottom row, choose the middle row to cut your yarn, pick up those live stitches, which are now sort of dangling on either side, like the top of the row and the bottom of the row, and then you knit behind a flap. So you then sew in behind, and it will be a interior pocket, and you can then have the live stitches to do a fancy trim as the exterior pocket, whether you want to do a I-cord or maybe a seed stitch or a rib stitch. Those stitches will be live to finish the garment off. There's a little bit of sewing involved as well, because you do knit up, or you could knit in to the side seams as you are completing your decorative front pocket as well. So I have a clip as well which highlights the fact that you can be adventurous and abandon all of the fiddliness with just being confident with your work. And it is called Knitting Lesson Adding a Pocket by, I'm going to mispronounce this too, so do apologize for the channel name. It's Likus or LJ Cuskins. LJ Cuskins. So those are 3 ways that I've been looking at to build pockets as kind of like, after the fact that I've knitted up the panels and have my cardigan ready to go. I hope that helps with some of the answers to if you are building a garment or an object that needs a pocket attached to it. Now, this applies to if you're making a bag as well and you want an exterior pocket, any type of knitting kind of structure that you're building and a pocket wants to be added later after the fact, then these types of tips and videos will help you along your way, I hope. Moving along, now we're talking about another whip that is going to be a large project that's spanning over, I'm going to say, the next month. But I'm addicted to it. And every day I've figured out, I counted up how many of these I've done. They're little squares, 5 by 5 inch squares, and they're 2-tone granny squares in crochet. And I've averaged out about 2 a day. Sometimes I miss a couple of days, but then I get on the, I need to do these squares, and I'll punch out maybe 6 of them all in the one sitting. So I have done roughly 100 of these 5 by 5 squares, or almost 100, maybe 96 or something like that. But here's a chunk of them here, and they're all 2-toned. Now, this is a piece that was inspired by a quilted pattern called the Postcard from Sweden, and I will link the quilt pattern down below in the description box so you can take a look. I'm using a 3.5mm crochet hook. It's a Susan Bates metal hook, and I'm really enjoying making these wonderful squares. And I will link the designer who created this inspired piece from that original quilt pattern in the description box. So this is where I'm at with it. I have got, how many squares? 60 squares all up on this blanket so far. Here it is here. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love it. It's filling in the camera. I have to lean back so you can see it. I have some photos of this being built, but the practice that I have of doing these is that I do the pockets. I sew in, sorry, not pockets, I'm not talking about pockets anymore. Uh, the process involved with doing these squares is kind of threefold. I crochet them up, I sew in the ends. That's kind of step one. Step two is I'll soak them and then pin them to dry to 5x5 kind of template, and I'll use pins to put them like flat and dry them up. And then step three would be to sew them all together. So there's a little bit involved, not just in the crochet side, but also the prep and then the sewing together side. But I'm enjoying every aspect. I'm not a sewer, so I'm just whip stitching the panels together because I do like the seamless joins. Like there's no ridging or when you are joining with a single crochet. And I mean, I like it. I like that join for certain things, but for this one, I didn't want the squares, the triangles to be broken up in any way. I want it to flow. You can see that there are pinwheels or diamonds, depending on how your eye perceives the color relationship. And I like that because it does give a sense of play. You're always seeing different things in the patterning of the colors. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. So let's see, if that's 10 squares across at 5 inches per square across, that's 50 inches. So it's just over 4 feet in width. And I'm still building the length, and I'm hoping to get to, my yarn might stretch me to like 16 rows, I'm hoping. So that'll be 10 fives are 50 width, and then 16 fives are, what is that, 530, that's 80 inches high. I might sacrifice it to come down to maybe a 14 square length, and that'll just give me over 6 feet, which is nice. I like that. And almost 7 feet in length. I think the blanket will be a nice size for a single bed, or just to throw over you if you are like watching a movie. And I think it'll be a lovely throw over blanket. It's not that thick, it's quite a light fluffy blanket. But here are the photographs that I'm going to add in right now, so you can see one of the process steps that I take to getting it out on the ground, and we'll come back and talk about what I used in the blanket. There's a little bit of fun in the craft room when I have to clear off enough workspace on the ground to lay out all those squares and get my feel for where placement's going to be and how it works out. So I do love that process as well, and it does give me a lot of freedom to move the colors around before I set it in stone and sew it all together. So the yarn that I am using for the postcard from Sweden blanket is this yarn here from Hobby, and it's called Woody Tweed. It is classified a 3-weight yarn, and this yarn was sent to me by Hobby. My contact there wanted me to review some yarns, and I left it up to them to give me whatever colors that they wanted, and they sent me all 16 colors in the collection. Now I'm using 11 in the blanket. The brighter tones, or all the neutrals, and kind of like the more grays, white, black, charcoal, I left out. So I have still 5 balls of this untouched, which I'll keep for a different project, but I might be bordering the blanket as well. So I think one of the neutrals will be great to use as a border, and that way it'll frame the work. Thank you, Hobby, for sending me this wonderful yarn. If you're interested in looking at the review, I did a review on this yarn back in January, and I'll also link that down below in the description box. So if you're keen on finding out what my thoughts are on the yarn, so you'll see the limitations that I found with this yarn as well when using it. And I do think that the color palette is beautiful, as you can tell by the blanket, how they relate to one another, all the different colors. But I find that they're really good with the blues and greens, giving them maybe 3 or 4 different options in blue and green. But then the yellow and purple, there is a yellow in there, but there could be another yellow. There could be also some purples to choose from that could be added to the collection, and a nice lovely magenta or coral. Next up is the update on my log cabin knit blanket, and I am using the king size AliExpress. It's a knitting machine that I crank out these panels and then I sew them all together and come up with the color arrangement of the log cabin blanket. It is a fun project. I'm really enjoying the machine. I haven't done work on this for the full week, but in my week previously to showing you the stage of the video, I've added 6 new colors to it. And I've got to highlight where this little template is because I absolutely love the template. I was looking everywhere for a rectangular style log cabin blanket, and this is the template that I found on Moogly. Now, I'll also include where I found the template in the description box below, but I'm making it a little bit bigger than the template here by just adding another row of colors on the external of this template. Absolutely love how this is working out. The other thing that I want to talk about and feature is the yarn that I'm using for this blanket, and it's all the Hirschner's variety yarn in 2 collections. I've added the Bohemian Romance collection with the worsted weight collection, and I did get 6 balls of the Bohemian Romance sent to me by Hirschner's to try out and test, so thank you Hirschner's, and I've added to it because I like this yarn so much. It's like my new favorite economic yarn. It's really soft and I love the colors that you can choose from. So here is one of what the label looks like for the Hirschner's worsted 8 balls here, and this colorway is called Loofah, and that's my next one that I'm putting in, so that's why it's sitting by my project. And I am inspired and learned so much from the YouTube world out there, and I have to give credit where credit's due on where I got wind of how to sew these panels of from my knitting machine together. And it is Jojo Juju AliExpress Knitting Machine podcast or YouTube channel, and this particular video is called How to Knit an Adi Blanket. Now, the tutorial is just strips on their own, like side-by-side strips, but the technique is what I used to construct and also to sew all the panels together for my log style blanket. And I really enjoyed that tutorial. I'll just put my notes down here and I'll grab where I'm at. Here it is here. Okay. Can you, oh, there we go. I can't see through to see what you're seeing, but I have some photos of it, and I've got a nice kind of tealy blue down here. I haven't sewn in my ends yet, but how I'm doing my ends is a little different from the tutorial that I watched. So I am doing it is a single crochet, and what I'll do, oh sorry, it's a slip stitch in crochet. So I grab one loop, the other loop, and then a slip stitch through, and it gives me nice little V's. And it relates to the number of stitches that go across because there's 46. So I'll get 23 little V's. And I've worked out my 23 little V's need to be attached along here to more rows so that it lays flat. So instead of doing one of my V stitches to a row when it's connecting to the right angle or perpendicular piece here, I'm actually having to do the third one in my V needs to attach to 2 rows. So I've kind of calculated how it can lay flat. Now, it was through trial and error, because the first couple of ones I was doing 1 for 1 and it was really pinching in on the join. So I needed to kind of like get it to be more flush and create nice right angle, 90-degree angles. Yeah, I'm still learning, so but it is a great, wonderful blanket. I do like the colors and how they're all working out. And my loafer will be the next color, and I have to put that on this side here. Nope, this side here. So I've yet to sort of like cut off this piece here, sew it together and close off the hole, because right now it's just the tube, and then the loofah color will go along this nice fox. It's like a fox brown. I really love this color here. So in the end, when I finish this piece, I'll devote some time to talk about all the colors that I'm using in my palette and how I'm working with the wonderful skeins of yarn. Is that I'm lining them up in a Tupperware, and I have them all kind of like poking out so that I can do center pull. And rather than having the balls kind of rolling around everywhere, I'm just leaving them sitting up perched like bobbins on a sewing machine, and I will put it into the Addy Knitting Express and crank it up, and then there it is. It stays nice and neat without tangles and without rolling around. So it's really a nice way of working through the different colors. Yeah. And so I'm really enjoying making it. It's very, very soft and squishy. This is an easy to care for yarn, and it's all 4-weight yarn. So there we have my log cabin blanket. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is some happy mail. Now, you never need to send me any happy mail, but when I do receive it, I appreciate it, and it does do what the name suggests. It does make me super happy. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This is from my good friend Emmy, and it arrived a day after Valentine's Day back in February. So I've had it for a while, and I want to put it up on my shelf, but I wanted to show you before doing that this is what she sent me. And Chad, it is to my Valentines, Gary and Chad, with love from Emmy. And I have read the inscription on the inside, but I'll keep it like, I won't read it to you here on camera. It is personal, but I do love Emmy. You're so sweet. Thank you so much. And inside the envelope were 2 teas, and Chad and I do love drinking tea at nighttime. This one here is a Henley and Sons tea called Paris. It's a black tea. Very fancy. So I think we'll share that in a pot, and we'll just sort of let it sit there and steep for a while. And this one is the Stash Organic Lavender Tulsi. And that is a caffeinated free tea. So thank you so much. We'll enjoy those thoroughly. And I will put my card up on the shelf here for the next video when I do that. The next gift that I got was sent to me by a friend that I've just recently met, and her handle name, I don't know whether I can say her real name, but her handle name here is Proverbs 31 Yarn, and she had generously gifted me a pattern called Paris de Jours. I don't know whether you pronounce the S at the end. I don't think you do. Paris de Jours. And it is a knitted scarf that is designed by, it's Isabel Kramer. And I think I might have seen this scarf on another podcast channel being knitted up, and it was Ray at Needles at the Ready. I really enjoy the look of it. It does have eyelets as texture, and it looks to me, by looking at the picture, it has some sort of ribbing edging. So thank you for that. That's so sweet. I have yarn that I picked out for it too, but I've got to put it in my queue because I have other things that I've got to work on and finish up, including my whips that are still on the go here. But thank you so much. I will get to it maybe in the next year. So thank you so much for this wonderful pattern. I do appreciate it. That finishes up all of the yarny goodies that I'm going to talk about in this video, and I'm going to shift gears now and talk about what I've been up to with my husband Chad here in our little community on Vancouver Island. There are a couple of outings and some footage that I want to share with you, but if you're only sticking around for the yarny goodies, then I want to say thank you for joining and staying this far into the video. Also, if you want to come along with me, you're more than welcome to. So let's get cracking in on what's been happening. 3 weekends ago, we went to Victoria. We got an invitation by Chad's cousins to come down and sleep a couple of nights. So we spent, I think, 3 days there, 2 nights. And Victoria is a city on Vancouver Island that is around 2.5 hour drive away from where we live. And Victoria is the capital of British Columbia, which is my province. There they have the Treasury, the Parliament buildings, all of the government housing is situated in Victoria. There's a wonderful sea walk there that we did, and we got into the car and drove to new places to both myself and Chad. So we drove to a place called the Bear Mountain Golf Club, and the Bear Mountain it's spelled B-E-A-R, but they've excavated it so extensively that it does look like it's quite a bare mountain, showing lots of rock face and just low brush. All the trees are gone, but the beautiful scenery scenery where the golf course is, perched on top, there is a clubhouse. We enjoyed our brunch there on our day's outing that we went along to Sooke. And I have footage of the Bear Lodge club where we ate our brunch, and then went on further to Sooke, and past Sooke we went through to a place called Jordan Creek, and that is kind of open ocean road, very, very grey road. It was quite a stormy day, so very wild and windy. And we got out and watched these kite surfers do their amazing feats across the waves. They were white cap waves, and they managed to stay on top of their boards, which was incredible. So we spent a little outing there, found this wonderful spot called Shirley's Delicious, and they serve wonderful beverages like cappuccino and espresso and baked goods. So we sat there and enjoyed the company. It's very popular. There was a lineup out the door just to get in to get a seat and order, but we enjoyed all of the experiences with Chad's cousins. So I want to say a big thank you to Chad's cousins. So I've got some footage as well of other things that we did. There were walks along the beach front there down in Victoria. And we visited a school because they have a young son who was doing some fencing. We went to this little, it was almost like a Tudor style, I'm going to say German kind of inspired school grounds. Very old looking, maybe the 1920s or even predating that. And it reminded me a lot of Harry Potter. So I've got the griffin is their, I guess, mascot emblem that's on their shield. And I'll add in those clips now so that you can see some of the highlights of our Victoria/Sooke and Jordan Creek adventure. watching those clips back does remind me of the wonderful time that we had down in Victoria and the surrounding areas with Chad's cousins. And we want to say a huge thank you for Chad's cousins being perfect hosts and treating us super well. Chad and I were invited to a birthday party, and these are people that I don't really know that well, probably have met up with half a dozen times, and there were new people at the party, so I feel like my circle of friends are expanding. And I did gift the party person a bush tracker beanie, and she wore it all night. I thought it looked great on her. She got lots of compliments, and it brought up the fact of where I found the bush tracker beanie. So I said, no, I made it. And that led to talking about the channel. The new friends that I had met said that they would watch the channel and see whether, as support, and find out a little bit more about my community here, as well as what I make. So I want to say a huge hi to any of those friends who are watching. I hope that you're enjoying the content. The last thing I want to talk about is what I've been watching to keep myself entertained on TV while I'm crafting away. Now, some of these I like listening to because I'm maybe focused on my work. These are some of the suggestions that I can make. So I have a movie here, a TV series that they've had 2 seasons of so far, and also a travel documentary style. It's a funny experience, but I can recommend these while you're stitching away and crafting. First one, the movie, is called Private Life, and it stars Catherine Hayne, Paul Guymat, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, and Kaylee Carter, who plays the remarkable Sadie. Now, this story is about fertility and wanting to start and build a family. Now, it could trigger some sensitive issues with people. So a word of caution there, if you are watching this movie, that there are moments of sensitive issues where you might need your Kleenex, which is the case with me. I kind of cried in it, and then I laughed as well because there were some fun bits throughout the movie. So it's a little bit of a roller coaster of emotions, but the storyline is great. The dynamic between the family members is superb, and I thought the writing was fantastic. So the highlight for me was definitely the character Sadie, and I absolutely fell in love with the family straight away. The next one is a series called White Lotus, and they've had 2 seasons out. And the first one, White Lotus, to begin with, is a chain of hotels around the world. They've featured the first season being focused on the Hawaiian White Lotus, and it's a chance of seeing people come to the hotel and sharing their vignette stories and how they intertwine with one another. And generally there is a mystery that needs to be solved. Without giving too much away, I absolutely enjoyed this. Me and Chad binge watched all of the first season, and we just completed the second one. Now the second one, it's moved to Italy, in Sicily, and they are similar. Different types of families come in, or people, and they interact with one another, and they tell a certain story. There's generally some sort of amazing twist, or there are kind of like damaged people, if you want to call them, for lack of a better term, with some quite bizarre stories to begin with, and then they are kind of slowly unpeeled like an onion, if you want to take the phrase from one of the actors in the story. She uses that term, and it stars here, I'm just going to say, the creator and producer is Mike White. Now, you might have recognized him as a cast member on Survivor. He was one of the candidates that was in Survivor, the reality show. So he is a producer, and he was producing the White Lotus series. Now, the other actors that I can highlight here are Jennifer Coolidge, Murray Bartlett, Connie Britton and Steve Zane. They were in season 1 and they captured my attention in the performances. The season 2, which is the one in Sicily, I can say that the female actors had it down. They stole every performance in my opinion. So Jennifer Coolidge again, and we have Simona Tabosco and Sabrina Impacciatore. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced all their names, but those were the ones that captured my attention with their performances. The third one, which is the travel tip, I just recently started watching. We're on episode 4, and it is Eugene Lovey. He's been asked to host the Impeccable Traveler. No, I've forgotten what it's called. I'll leave it down below in the description box. It's something that is when you don't want to travel. I can't remember. I can hear you screaming it out at me, but it's just not coming to me. And so he travels around all of these exclusive places around the world to see whether he can get involved with the culture and learn something new about the place. And he's been through, so far that I've watched, Iceland, and he's gone to Costa Rica, and I believe there was one in Utah that we just watched. I'm really enjoying it. I think also he was in Venice as well, which I think personally so far along the way that we've been watching, it's his favorite was Venice. I can suggest that the accidental, it's gonna eat at me now until I can think of it, but I'm gonna let it go. And with that catches you up with all of the things that I need to talk about. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and look after yourselves. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.